Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 98. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad you guys are back with us for this Friday show. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I made it to April, so I'm doing better here. What a crazy busy week we've had, and I'm guessing it'll lighten up a little bit today. I don't think we have all these media obligations today to cover and all like that, but we sure have had fun along the way here. This last 2.5 weeks I think or so of covering these things, and we've been able to track where the Steelers have been. We've been able to track several of these players that they've talked to along the way. So I think it might be slowing down heading into the weekend here.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun attending these pro day Zoom sessions, talking to these guys, some really good people I think we've gotten to meet and talk to, and just some really impressive guys in this draft class. So I'm sure that's common for every single draft class. Again, you don't always hear about the great stories and great character stuff because the negative always sells, but just a ton of really good people, it seems like, who've been very generous with their time.
Absolutely.
All right, Dave, let's jump into the news. Not a ton going on today, but still, of course, some things to talk about. This podcast will be headlined by the news that Karl Joseph, former West Virginia safety and first-round pick, had come in for Pittsburgh for a visit. We believe that visit happened yesterday. Obviously, no news on a contract yet, so there's a decent chance he's left town without a contract. But Karl Joseph in for a visit, and if the signing does happen, that would be some excellent safety depth for a team that is lacking that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And he was listed. Josina Anderson was the first one to break that news a few days ago that he was coming. He was listed on the NFL transaction sheet yesterday as a visitor there. We'll see. We haven't heard anything yet on that. I don't know how COVID may have these things kind of slowed down right now, but you would think with it being Friday, if there's no report by about noontime or so today that he's been signed, he probably left town. If I know Kevin Colbert, he's probably trying to get him signed to a veteran salary benefit contract or a 2-year deal for close to the minimum that wouldn't move the salary cap needle too terribly much. Because let's face it, the Steelers, even though and we'll talk about their cap situation a little bit, they don't have a lot of money to play with still right now when you look at future cost and all like that. Hopefully everybody got to listen to my terrible take from Thursday, where I kind of recapped the salary cap situation and what lies ahead for the Steelers there. So back to Karl Joseph. This is a guy I know I have had my eye on for a while, and I think you have as well. I think going back to that draft year for him, which was 2016? Is that right?
I think so. Sounds right.
Boy, we stalked him pretty good, I think, during the pre-draft process, and I think Mike Tomlin and Kevin Colbert did as well too. They showed up at the West Virginia Pro Day that year. I think Joseph was coming off of minor knee surgery or something like that. I don't think he did much of anything at his pro day there, but there was known interest in Karl Joseph, I think, throughout the pre-draft process that year. So much so that I had Karl Joseph as my Steelers first-round pick in my final mock draft that year. Obviously did not get that right. He went a few picks, I think, before the Steelers picked to the at the time Oakland Raiders there, and played his 4 years with the Raiders, played last year with the Cleveland Browns. He never materialized kind of into that player that I think a lot of people thought he might, and that's where he is right now. He's still an unsigned, unrestricted free agent at this point here, and yeah, he would provide the Steelers nice depth. We know Kevin Colbert likes that pedigree. We know that they liked Karl Joseph throughout the pre-draft process. He might be holding out, waiting for a little bit of a better better deal at this point. So we'll see, and I'm not surprised to see him kind of circle back to the Steelers here, at least as a visitor this offseason.
Yeah, he was the guy last year that all the buzz over Steelers Nation was that could Joseph sign, because again, no safety depth this time last year either. Ultimately signed.
You wrote him up on your wish list, didn't you?
I had him and Killebrew, so apparently my wish list is good 1 year after the fact. It's apparently how the Steelers are doing it. So not a surprise there, but yeah, unless he wants to play for really cheap, he may want to continue to wait, explore options. Although the safety market generally is pretty cold, and it has been cold this year as well, especially given the cap crunch because of the pandemic. So I'm not sure how much more he could get somewhere else. It may be more about finding the right opportunity for him as opposed to the financial component of things.
Right, and he probably wants a little bit better shot maybe to play, right? Is that
what could be his role here? Could he be used as a obviously backup safety, but a dime backer potentially? There's no 6DB on this roster right now.
I mean, that Mike part of that Mike Hilton role would be great, wouldn't it?
Like playing over as a slot corner,
playing sub in the slot. In some situations.
Yeah, something creative with him. I think you want to get that talent on the field. I don't know exactly what that would look like, but you would find a way to get him on the field, probably at least in dime. Then, of course, again, a backup safety.
Right now, look, they don't have Sean Davis. Sounds like he is signed away. Not that he was going to be heavy in that role anyway. But you've lost. You got Cameron Sutton now looking like he's on the outside. You got Mike Hilton gone. And although you have Mike Hilton, Marcus Allen back, that he didn't do too. It's not hard to upgrade what he did in dime situations last year either, right?
Well, he wasn't even really, I think, ever much of the dime defender, and when he moved to inside linebacker, I think maybe the guy Joseph theoretically, if he were to sign, which hasn't even happened yet, but who he could compete with is Antoine Brooks Jr. Could they have kind of role there as Brooks trying to take a peek to expand his role as a 6DB, which he was very slightly last year. So that would be maybe his main competition if he were to be signed.
Well, what I'm getting at too with Joseph here is he's a pretty good run defender so far. Is that in certain situations, because you lost a good defender in Mike Hilton, against the run in certain situations where, could you kind of shoehorn him into, certain situations down low in the box like that?
Yeah, the times last year where Pittsburgh would play occasionally nickel against 12 personnel because they had Hilton in. Could you have Joseph fill that role potentially? But again, that is still obviously predicated on him signing, and it doesn't sound like that's happened yet.
He's more, look, he's an interchangeable guy for both safety positions, but I think ideally he is a guy you'd want closer to the line of scrimmage than you would more in a free safety role.
I agree, although, God, if Minka ever went down, who on the earth would ever replace him in that skill set? That would just be almost impossible to do.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, where Karl Joseph's versatility would come in a little bit there. Yeah,
I think you basically have to play him there. I think last year you could have played maybe Cam Sutton there. They kind of played Sutton a lot of safety and third down rotation stuff, but obviously that's probably not going to be much of an option this season.
And here's the thing too, in this pre-draft process, we've seen the Steelers look at players that could potentially fit in that dime role on top of it, right? The kind of that hybrid player, if you will.
Yeah, whether that's the guy we'll talk about here in a minute. Not that he would probably do that, but Zavin Collins, maybe JOK from Notre Dame, the Florida State kid. So yeah, it's all about the buzzword is positionless football, and Joseph is a guy that can wear a lot of hats. And
here we are spending 10 minutes on a guy not signed yet, but he certainly would fit once again. You could find a way to fit him and get him on the field, even in some sub-package situations, as we mentioned there. So I would imagine that probably pay has a little bit to do with this if indeed he is not signed by this weekend. And normally, unfortunately, as we've seen in the past, usually when these free agents come to town and they visit this time of year, if they leave, they usually don't come back.
Yeah, it's probably Kevin Colbert saying to Karl Joseph, "Will you play for nothing?" No? Well, that's the best I could do.
Yeah,
is nothing.
And work out some drama in there too. If you get on that plane
Maybe not today.
Do you
Maybe
still
not tomorrow.
buy that report from a couple years ago with Hightower?
What was the report there? Refresh my memory.
Something like, they were gonna, what was it, 10 million yearly average or something like that, and if you get on the plane, the deal's off, kind of.
Well, I thought New England swooped in too last second with a better offer. Wasn't that the story? He was about to sign, and then Belichick came in and said, "No, we'll top it."
Right, something along those lines. I think they tried to frame that more on Kevin Colbert, trying to tell him, if you get on that plane, the deal's off, kind of thing. And that was kind of, to me, over sensationalized, not sensualized.
Different tone of that conversation.
Yeah. I don't know what made me think about that. With all that's going on with Joseph Ryder, and look, maybe he's held up in sort of the medical process right now. So that with COVID and all like that, we have seen in the past players get listed as visitors, and then the actual visit not happen until like a day or two later or something. So I don't want to say that it's dead yet, but if we make it to 5:00 on Friday and there's still no word, that's probably not a good sign.
Yeah, that was kind of my feel. Give it to the end of the day, and if we haven't heard anything, then he's probably not signing with Pittsburgh. But we'll see. Will be a good signing if they can pull it off.
Absolutely.
All right, Dave. Let's talk about speaking of pro days. Like you said, things.
They did sign a couple other guys though since we last talked though, so we should probably cover those guys here.
Yeah, we should. You can go through all the names here, so I don't want to miss anybody. I know they signed. They officially announced the Ballage signing, the Coward signing, and Jarvis Miller, a linebacker from where was he? Penn State, and was transferred to UMass, I believe, and he worked out at UMass's pro day. So that now makes three different guys. The other Mathew Sexton as well, who they signed the other day. Three guys they have signed on the pro day circuit. So that's a little bit of uniqueness of this pro day season.
Yeah, it is, and it just goes to show you that when they're out there on the pro day trail, that some of these guys can still potentially get jobs. Jarvis Miller, I don't know too much about him. More about I think his final season at Penn State before he transferred. Saw a little bit on him. I think him and Marcus Allen are buddies from maybe a little bit of time at Penn State there as well too. A little bit of an older kid too, because wasn't he a graduate student at UMass that final year in 2019? Obviously hasn't stuck yet, but this is going to be a depth guy and look, they could use a little bit more depth at the inside linebacker, at least just for this time of year right now here. A guy that's going to have to make his mark on special teams. I've looked more at the wide receiver, Mathew Sexton, than I have Jarvis Miller. So what do you know about Jarvis Miller?
About as much as you do. Usually I kind of wait for these guys to go into camp because they're basically signing the equivalent of futures contracts, just trying to get on the 90-man roster and stick and hang around for as long as they can. So I just think it's interesting. Last year Pittsburgh was kind of at the forefront of signing all the XFL guys. I think they signed, 6 or 7 of them after the league folded. And so it feels like this year they're kind of on the forefront of signing guys from pro days, because now it's Tyler Simmons, it's Mathew Sexton, and it's Jarvis Miller.
As far as Sexton goes, an interesting guy when you go and look at some of his Eastern Michigan tape. How about shout out to the MAC, right?
Yeah, and you know who was at Michigan State's pro day? Because it wasn't Kevin Colbert nor Mike Tomlin.
Who was there? Who was it?
It was Dan Colbert.
Oh, Dan, yeah, the Mac King, the Mac Daddy.
Leave it to Dan Colbert to sign a Mac guy.
The thing with Sexton is he can give you a little bit of something when it comes to return game there. More of a slot player, but he did move around. It looks like a little bit at Eastern Michigan. You go kind of look at his highlights and stuff like that. This is a guy that can get down the field and make some catches on top of it. So a guy that gives you the ability to stretch the field a little bit here. And another thing that stuck out to me too with him with some of his highlights is there's some contested catch stuff in there. So we know that's a trait the Steelers lean heavy on is the contested catch trait. I view him more than anything though when you look at him top to bottom, he is a guy right now that you would potentially hope could push a guy like Ray McCloud. He is a guy that can go in motion, kind of a man, create
return guy.
He does have a little bit of return ability to him, but I think more kickoff than he does punt returns. If memory serves me there with his stats and all like that. But he's a guy that you manufacture. What I was trying to say is manufacture some stats on. I mean, manufacture some plays without in space on. You see them do that a little bit with Eastern Michigan. He also not afraid to tackle too, so he can get up and down the field and give you some help on special teams. I think something like 18 special teams tackles.
Sports Reference has him down for 26 in his career, including 14 as a sophomore in 2017, which is ridiculously good numbers.
Right. So I mean, it gives you both sides of the coin, special teams aspect to him. When it comes to that. So just a gritty overall player, got a little bit of quickness, a little bit of a jitterbug to him. But once again, I view him more as a guy that would, you bring in to maybe push a guy like Ray McCloud.
Yeah, or insurance, in case Ray gets hurt, something like that. You're right. Sexton did have more kick returns than punt returns, but not have a lot of success on kick returns. If Sports Reference is to be believed here, Mathew Sexton has 2 career punt returns. One went for 27 yards, and one as a senior went for a 50-yard touchdown. So maybe we put him on punts, because he might have a knack for it.
Right. I just remember seeing mostly kickoff return stuff with him.
Right. His sophomore year, he had 18 of kick returns.
Right. So, look, I mean, minimum salary. I think it's a minimum salary. I think it's just $660,000 for both him and Miller. So, these are kind of, like you said, fill out the roster kind of guys right now. We never just want to say camp bodies, because we've seen one or two of these guys in the past actually stick and all like that.
Sure, yeah, I'm not framing it to say they don't have a chance, but framing it in the sense of these are minimum level deals equivalent to future contracts, and that's kind of the scope of it. Again, I think the most interesting thing, Sexton's an interesting guy resume, but just the approach and philosophy for Pittsburgh, you're trying to find as much talent as possible. And again, XFL last year, this year, feels like they're at the forefront of signing these guys at pro days, because again, what's happening is these guys that missed out on a pro day last year because they all got canceled essentially are now coming back to their pro days this year that are going on to try to finally get that chance to test in time and show themselves for NFL scouts.
I did find this on Sexton as well too. In 2019, he had 34 receptions, 4 TDs. 10 of those 34 receptions went for 15 yards or more, and 6 of them went for 25 yards or more. In 2018, he had another 37 receptions. 8 of them went for 15 or more yards, and 3 of them went for 25 or more yards. And then in 2017, 26 catches. 7 of them went for 15 or more yards, and 5 of those went for 25 yards or more. So this is a guy that you get the ball in his hands, he can get you some, at least at Eastern Michigan was able to pop some bigger plays for you.
Yeah, and always looking for playmakers, guys who can win in space in the NFL. So interesting guy there in Sexton.
Kind of a Beasley feel to him,
Cole Beasley?
Yeah.
Does he?
Just a little bit of a, huh?
Is he faster than Cole Beasley? Because he ran low 4.3s was the report.
What did Beasley run?
I do not have Cole Beasley's 40 time in my noggin. Let me look it up here. I mean, I get where you're getting at though in the comparison of it. Beasley ran 4.49.
And what did this kid run?
I think Pelissero said low 4.3s. I don't know if there was an official time on that.
Yeah, he don't look like he's that fast, but he does look like he's Cole Beasley fast. So
okay, Cole Beasley fast.
That's the first kind of thing that jumped in my head when watching his tape.
Okay,
let's see. You know what? Beasley's what, almost 5'8", 170, and what is this kid?
He's short. I don't know his exact size.
All right. He's about the same size. Anyway, that's the first comparison that kind of jumped in my head there. All right, we spent way too long on two of these kids, but they did get signed, so I wanted to make sure that we gave them a little bit of time here.
Right. We're talking about Karl Joseph, who went unsilenced. At least spend some time on the guys who actually are currently Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, Dave, let's transition to the pro day circuit. Again, things are kind of wrapping up. Just a couple more pro days left in draft season, but learning some more information about guys who have spoken with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We should probably start with Tulsa linebacker Zavin Collins, who spoke with the media yesterday, has his pro day today, which will be interesting to see what Steelers personnel attend that workout. But he said he had met with the entire Steelers staff, including Coach Tomlin, said he loved Coach Tomlin, great dude, great personality, and would love to become a Pittsburgh Steeler. So Zavin Collins, one of the freakiest athletes, off-ball linebacker / a little bit of edge rush in his game as well, and just a really good interview getting to talk with him yesterday.
Absolutely. Looks like he's got his head screwed on straight and all. Really a good interview, and I think it went almost 30 minutes, something along those lines.
It's a long interview. It's only a guy, though, so I guess we had lots of his time.
Right, and you go back and you flip on the tape on Zavin, planet theory guy, and I think he knows that. Very, very confident guy that I think can help you all over the field, and he's not you can tell kind of when people get in these interviews and they don't know much about the player, and a lot of people trying to frame him, I think, as an edge, and that's not his game, but he can rush off the edge for you. He does have a little bit of experience at that, but make no mistake about it, he is an off-the-ball linebacker, and I think we said it several times. You go back and you look at how big he is and the way he moves. Kind of got that. Who's the other Edmonds brother? The Tremaine Edmonds kind of feel to him. How big was Fred Warner? Was Warner about that same size?
I think he's a little bit smaller, maybe, but yeah, 6'3.5", 236 is what Warner weighed in at the combine.
You definitely, from the end zone view, when it comes to Zavin, you remember how the Fred Warner tape was? Man, there was certain plays where from the end zone view, just Fred Warner just jumped off the tape with that explosion and that point A to point B ability. Zavin Collins is the same way, man. You see some of that film with him, and just the him able to do that at the size he's at as well too just makes him kind of one of those planet theory kind of guys. Now, here's the thing: who was there at the pro day?
Yeah, well, that'll be today, and so I don't know who they're going to send. I mean, obviously, do you think Tomlin and Colbert are going to make the trip for a guy from Tulsa? Not to knock him too much, but they just generally don't do that, especially when he's the only Golden Hurricane really worth noting working out. So we'll see. I mean, Wilsavsky, I think, would be there, maybe.
You would think there's a good possibility of it, but even so, non-Power 5. If Colbert and Tomlin aren't there, that usually doesn't. No, there's no hard rules on it, obviously. But I mean, you go back. I think I rattled them off the other day. I think you go at least all the way back to Marquise Pouncey, right? And all those times, Kevin Colbert has been at the pro day.
Right, of Tomlin or Colbert.
And I think the last person that you have to go to find an instance of maybe that not happening was Ziggy Hood. And I've heard conflicting reports all the way back that far that maybe one of those guys were there at I don't know if we know definite still to this day if Kevin Colbert wasn't at that Missouri Pro Day that year for Ziggy Hood.
Yeah, I don't know 100% if they weren't there. I've just found no evidence they were there, so I have to assume they weren't right now, and so that's why I draw the line. But anyway, yeah, last decade, and then other history stuff. The last time they drafted a non-Power 5 player in the first round was, do you know the answer to that?
Go repeat the question, please.
The last time the Steelers drafted a non-Power 5 conference player in the first round.
Oh, I mean, you have to go back to let's see, Ben was 2004.
Is that your answer?
Huh?
Is that the answer?
I'm trying to remember when was Coakley?
It was 2004 is the answer. It was Ben and Coakley, both in 2004. So yeah, last time non-Power 5 was Ben, and that was of course your quarterback, and he was the last quarterback on the board. So again, not saying it can't happen. And Collins is a freaky dude. This dude's going to break this mold. It's a guy like him. And as you said, it's not like he's some 220-pound guy that's good athlete linebacker that's going to get just eaten up and swallowed up at the NFL level. He's like 260 pounds is what he's listed as. We'll see what he weighs in at, but just a really good athlete who has great size and a bigger and more explosive guy, but kind of that Timmons role where he's best off ball, but also play a little bit of edge kind of in some sub package if you really need him to.
All right.
So interesting guy. Definitely want to check out who is going to be at Tulsa today. Another potential first-round pick who says he's spoken with the Steelers is offensive tackle out of Oklahoma State, Tevin Jenkins, who had one of the more, let's call it intense pro day interviews with the media I've ever listened to yesterday.
and most of that came with answers to questions you asked him. On top of it there, I didn't know you knew how to spell some of those words, Alex.
Yeah, I lost my innocence yesterday listening to Tevin Jenkins.
My wife got a kick out of it. I'm sitting here laughing because I saw how dare you transcribe some of that stuff on Twitter, you potty mouth sailor Alex Kozora.
I had soap in my mouth as I was writing it.
Yeah.
Listen, hey, he said it, not me. Actually, all right. So he was dropping a lot of MFers is how I'll censor myself here. And the first time he said it, he said, "Oh, I probably shouldn't cuss." Then he continued to cuss the rest of the interview. But he's known as this physical, tough, kind of old school road grader and has that mentality over in the pro day interview. And so made for some very good quotes.
Absolutely. It most definitely did with him. And he said maybe I shouldn't say some of that stuff. And he goes ahead and he says some of that stuff there on top of. Look, and I think we found out more about him too. Through questions by going through his pro day media session and all. In so many words, he was told, look, you're just not going to be able to get by on raw ability, and you're going to have to, get a little bit nastier here with some things. And you look at his tape from at least last season, man, and that looks like it was indeed the case with him, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the question I would have, I need to look at a tape prior to this past year, is just why did it take so long for the light to come on for this guy? I mean, why was he not that kind of guy before? Why did it take the coaches sitting him down and saying, if you want to get to the NFL, this is how you have to play? I'd just be curious about that.
Right, absolutely. And why did it take? Yeah, why did it get to that point?
Mm-hmm. Right, but what he is now is a great run blocker, maybe probably the best run blocking tackle in this class. And so if the Steelers wanted to be really serious about the old, mauler run blocker and some physical guy and just kind of, someone that's going to be a tone setter for that offensive line, Tevin Jenkins would look great on that right side.
Right, for sure. But yeah, I mean, not surprising. We don't know who was there though, do we?
No, I had a tough day yesterday trying to find these guys. They had somebody there. I went through literally every piece of video I could find, every photo, and I could not spot anyone from the Steelers. They were there. They said all 32 teams attended, but could not find specifically who the Steelers sent.
Right, and we don't.
Tony Pauline had a report, though, that the Steelers were showing, quote, a lot of interest in Tevin Jenkins.
Yeah, and why wouldn't they? Right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
But we don't think Tomlin or Colbert was there.
Right. I think if they were there, usually that stuff gets found out pretty quickly.
Right.
Easily.
And a lot of people think he's going to be off the board by the time the Steelers pick anyway.
Yeah, the expectation is that he probably doesn't make it past 20 or early 20s. So who knows? But, it sounds like he's going to be a top 20 guy.
All right. What else do we have?
Those were the two headliners. Let me go through the rest of my pro day tracker. A couple of the Oregon State guys, Jamar Jefferson, running back, kind of a day 3 guy. I believe you said that a couple of the Central Florida DBs, got a ton of good defensive backs there at Central Florida, including Richie Grant, have spoken with the Steelers. Aaron Robinson.
He's something to watch. That maybe a little bit later. That Richie Grant. I didn't know much about him before yesterday, but he got kind of a Steelers feel to him for sure.
Right, and then Aaron Robinson, I think, is a slot corner day 2 guy, could be an option. We do know they sent senior scout Rick Rapriche to Central Florida yesterday.
All right. So a couple of guys maybe I know Robinson said that he has had contact. Grant's basically, yes, he's had contact, but he didn't say it directly. He basically said, I've met with with all teams. So
right. The thing with that is that he was at the Senior Bowl, and every team talks to every player at the Senior Bowl. So I don't know if he talked to the Steelers just at Mobile or if there was something more than that. So it's really hard to gauge that one.
And Chuba Hubbard, the running back out of Oklahoma State, did not name the Steelers specifically either. Just pretty much that he's talked to all teams as well. So, unless these guys are asked directly, sometimes it gets reported, if you meet with all 32 teams, did you really meet with a team? You know what I'm saying? It's kind of a gray area there. So I just wanted to kind of clarify the words that have came out of a couple of these kids' mouths.
Yeah, no, I definitely appreciate that. So, yeah, pro days winding down. Are we going to see Tomlin and Colbert another pro days or another Oregon's today? I don't think they're going to go to Oregon.
I wouldn't think.
They don't travel west. They don't they don't cross the Mississippi.
It doesn't unless it's David DeCastro, right?
Were they at the Castro? I guess they had to have been. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess
and how far west is Wisconsin for what?
Yeah, well, they were there, but they just don't go out west too often. So right. I don't think they'll be there, but I guess we'll see who is sent there because I imagine somebody from the Steelers will be.
You had an interesting find at Tulsa.
At Tulsa?
I mean, not Tulsa.
Kentucky?
No, where was this the small Danny Smith sighting for the
Kentucky and Boise State?
Okay, Boise State was the one I was thinking about.
Well, yeah, here's the thing. When we had the pro day session with Boise State the other day, Avery Williams, the corner / special teams guy, specifically said, and I went back and listened to it too, and other media outlets have reported this, that Danny Smith was at his pro day workout. So I assume that's true. But then I was going through other pro day information, and I'm 100% sure on this, Danny Smith was also at Kentucky that day. Now, there was a difference. Kentucky happened, I believe, at 11 a.m. Boise State was happening in the evening, local time, Eastern time. So I guess he could have made the trip, but either Danny Smith either has a private jet or has cloning ability, because I believe he was both at Kentucky and Boise State on the same day on March 31st.
That would be hard to make on a commercial aspect of it, right? Commercial flight?
Yeah, I would imagine. But Steelers, I'm sure, have a private jet, so he honestly could have gone that way as well. Never found him at Boise State, but there's so limited information. Like Boise State didn't even write up that they had a pro day, so there's very limited information on trying to find pictures from Boise State.
Boy, you want to talk about an interesting prospect?
Williams?
Yeah, from Boise State.
Yeah,
it's Avery Williams, right? Not to be confused with Avery Williamson.
I know, I've made that mistake like 47 times already.
But he is a guy that defensive back / return man, and then I think is getting even. Some teams are kind of looking at him as a running back, right?
Yeah, he said he went through running back and slot receiver drills at his Broncos pro day. What do you have? 9 career return touchdowns, I think 6 on punts and 3 on kicks, and has multiple block kicks and field goals and punts as well. So, I mean, this guy's done everything. He was the special teams player of the year, I believe, for the Mountain West in 2019. 6th, 7th round guys. He's small. He's 5'9", 190 pounds or something, but really a fun player and just a very interesting resume.
I haven't looked at any of his defensive stuff. I don't know if you have. I did look at it. I did look at his return stuff and a block punt or two. And I know that's got you kind of excited about him and all like that. But a guy that certainly would, and I think his numbers were good too, weren't they?
Yeah, he ran 4.41. The other numbers were average. Vertical, I think, was like 33.5. So, I mean, they were fine. But the 4.41 is a nice number to have.
So, in other words, I guess what we're getting at here is, boy, if you're looking for somebody to slam in there as a 6th or 7th round draft pick in one of these mocks, and especially if the Steelers somehow manage to pick up an extra pick or something via a trade or something, draft day trade. This is a guy that certainly would fit as a late round Steelers selection.
I would keep an eye on his teammate as well, tight end John Bates, if they don't get a Pat Fryermuth early in this draft. And also, he has special teams value. I think Ben Fennell said he played like over 500 snaps on special teams in his career, running down kicks and punts and things like that. So there's actually some value there for him as a special teams guy, but then also as a tight end or one of the better blockers, maybe the best blocking tight end. I played with Tommy Trumbo from Notre Dame in this class. With I think, and he showed some receiving ability. Bates did at the Senior Bowl, so that's going to be even a round 4, round 5 guy to watch out for.
You think I think he kind of pushes down into 5 or 6 possibly.
Yeah, he could. Just with those blocking tight ends, they're so hard to find. I think about Drew Sample from Washington a couple of years ago, who I think went in the 2nd round of the Bengals. If you want a really good blocking tight end, there's just so few of them in the draft. So that's why I think he could go a little bit earlier. I think he's a day 3 guy. It's just hard to really gauge from there where exactly on day 3 does he fall.
All right, so he is another one. How much have you watched on him?
A little bit, definitely a good blocker. I think he's got good hands too. He's not a great athlete; it's average. He's going to win contested and win in traffic a lot, but I think he's a pretty solid all-around tight end.
Was he was the one that was on the 2-time Mackey Award watch list, wasn't he?
Correct.
Okay, and another Senior Bowl guy, right?
Yes, another Senior Bowl guy. Had a good week down in Mobile.
All right, so there's 2 guys from Boise State right there. Probably need to people need to maybe dive a little bit deeper into here.
And when it comes to Kentucky, because you saw that photo, that is Danny Smith at Kentucky, right?
Like that's it. Yeah, and there might be, we might just be blessed enough that there are 2 Danny Smiths, So
God, I hope so. The Lord has answered my prayers. Probably misused that power. But at Kentucky, the specialist there to watch is punter Max Stuffy, who's one of the top punters in this class, and he was also at the Senior Bowl, I'm pretty sure. So that's a guy. If they do, I know you've been banging the gavel for them to take a punt.
I haven't been banging for it to happen. I'm predicting it would happen. So people don't get that confused. Banging the table for a punter versus predicting them to draft a punter. Now, how do you feel about that now throughout this process, this far through the process?
If they will draft a punter?
Yeah. Do you think they will? Do you what is the put a plausibility probability number on it?
Plausibility, probability. I don't know. 20%. I feel like there's just so many other needs to address. I mean, they'll sign somebody after the draft, but I think Barry actually had a pretty good year, and obviously now that he's been brought back, you have Waitman there as well. I don't think the odds they're there, but I don't think they're terribly high.
Okay.
But Max Stuffy, the guy to watch there. They had to have sent somebody else from Kentucky though. I mean, Davis kid, freaky linebacker. They got Joseph, Drake Jackson. Somebody else from Kentucky had to be there.
What exactly has Keith Butler been doing throughout all this?
It's a very good question. It's not that I can miss stuff, and I'm sure I've missed a lot of things. I have not seen Keith Butler once on the Pro Day trail.
Obviously we've seen Jerry O quite a bit.
I've seen basically everyone else but Keith Butler.
Okay. All right.
Trying to think, has there been any other coach that I haven't seen that either of us have seen? We've seen. I'm going to go through it here briefly, so I apologize. We've seen Tomlin, Colbert, obviously. We've seen Matt Canada, the OC. We've seen Mike Sullivan, the quarterback's coach. We've seen Faulkner. We've seen Ike Hilliard. We've seen Roberts. We've seen Clem. We've seen Chris Morgan. We've seen Dunbar. We've seen Olszewski. We've seen Grady Brown, Terrell Austin. Am I missing anyone at this point?
Man, I think the only one that we haven't seen is Butler, right?
Right. Now, I usually don't see him too much on the Pro Day trail, even in other years. He's not a name that I come across too often, but I think he is the only member of the Steelers coaching staff, really the whole staff, because I think I've seen all the scouts as well at some point.
Right.
That's interesting. I don't know, whatever it's worth.
If there's an award for it, you get it.
I'm the only one with this useless information. That's
it's not useless. I mean, it's what we do. It's what we do.
Yeah. So again, I could have missed them somewhere. There's a lot of unknown personnel I have listed on the Pro Day tracker, so who knows? But yeah, have not seen Keith Butler one time.
Was there anybody else that sticks out prospect-wise on the tracker since we last talked on Wednesday?
That cornerback from Minnesota, Benjamin St. Juste. I don't know how to say his last name exactly. Big long corner. Steelers, I think, had an interview with him. I forget when that happened or the details there, but that's maybe a round 3 kind of guy.
All right. It's so hard to pick out who may or may not have been there, though.
Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, someone was there again because they said every single team was in attendance. but I do not know who was there.
I'm trying to go back through some of this real quick. The last couple of days here. Yeah, you didn't. You failed. You get an F yesterday.
Yeah, I spent like 2 hours trying to comb through tape. Not a good day yesterday.
No. Let's see. We did see Dan Rooney Jr. at Wake Forest, right? And then Mark Gorsak was the one that you spotted at LSU. There had to be somebody else. You spotted
that. Yeah.
There had to be somebody else at LSU too, right?
Probably, but of course, the only guy I found.
All right. Where to now?
I do want to make another, speaking of just odds and ends and useless pieces of information, noticed this yesterday or 2 days ago, I think it was. Matt Sims no longer on the roster, former assistant coach of the Steelers from 2018 to 2020, and worked closely with the quarterbacks. He has now taken a job at East Carolina, which began March 1st as a senior defensive analyst. So I don't know exactly what happened there. My guess is that I think he was pretty close with Randy Fichtner. And with Fichtner gone and Canada being promoted to OC, Canada got to kind of hire his right-hand man and Tom Show to be the assistant, and I think that kind of pushed Matt Sims out of the picture.
Yeah, that quite possibly could have been the case.
So Matt Sims no longer on staff. And then, as you mentioned, Sean Davis going to the Colts on a 1-year contract. So who knows? He went to Washington last year and still found his way back in Pittsburgh. So we'll see what happens there.
And for those worried, that's being it's a 1-year deal. That's probably going to be a veteran benefit contract with him too. So and if it is, it's not going to count for. It won't factor into compensatory value program and all like that. So rest easy when it comes to that.
More minutia to get through. Did you want to do an update on Eric Ebron's restructure and just a general cap update for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Yeah,
I found that I hate finding accounting errors, and the NFLPA is finally catching up and getting some of these contracts processed and all on the NFLPA site on their salary cap page, and I awoke to a $36,000 difference. And I cannot have that at all. Come to find
over here.
Right. Come to find out, they as part of Eric Ebron's recent whatever you want to call what they did to his contract, a faux extension, I guess. They did add the 4 years onto it, but instead of taking his base salary all the way down to $1.075 million, they only took it down to $1.120 million. Instead, everything else remained the same there, but it made a slight difference in the cap savings, and just a $36,000 difference is what that came to be. The contracts on. What else did I want to go over? The Jordan Berry, we already talked about that potentially being a benefit contract. It was. He got a $100,000 signing bonus on that. Comes with a slightly discounted cap charge. I think we already discussed on that. The contracts on here's an interesting thing here. Sometimes you have to go through the game books to see if a guy was actually, because Pro Football Reference won't necessarily tell you if a guy was active or the kid won't get credit as a game if he does not dress, okay, in Pro Football Reference. So sometimes to find out the credited seasons versus accrued seasons, sometimes you have to go to the game books and see if a guy was actually just maybe inactive for X amount of games here. Rashad Coward's an interesting guy when it comes to accrued seasons versus credited seasons. Credited seasons determine your pay level when it comes to the the CBA and all like that. For every 3 games that you are on a roster, in a season, if you're on a roster for at least 3 or more games, you get a credited season, and then that goes towards determining your pay. You need 6 games or more on either IR or basically on a roster,
an active roster, right, to 53.
Right, active or inactive, not practice squad.
But I'm saying not practice squad on the 53-man roster.
Right, 6 or more games in a season to get an accrued season. An accrued season counts towards your free agency status. Okay, so there's a difference there. Accrued determines your free agency status, and credited determines your pay level. Okay. At some point I'll probably need to do another I'm sure I got a post on this somewhere there, but there is a difference between the two. What makes Rashad Coward an interesting aspect here is he had the accrued seasons. He only had, what was it, 3, I think. Which that's what made him a restricted free agent this season, even though he's been in the league for 4 years. Okay. His credited seasons, though, he had 4 of those, which bumped him up another level, in the pay structure. So he did not qualify to be an unrestricted free agent. He was a restricted free agent. He did not get tendered. And then when the Steelers signed him, you would look at him initially and say, well, he only has three seasons, so he would not qualify for a benefit contract. Well, he has enough credited seasons that he did. So long story short, spending too much time on it, but that's what I do. Rashad Coward is a 1-year benefit contract. He gets a base salary of $990,000, but because he has enough credited seasons, it qualifies as a benefit contract. So it should come with a reduced cap charge of $850,000 on him.
Yeah, good explanation, because those are those weird quirks of things that can definitely trip some people up. With Ebron, and I'm sure no one knows the answer to that, why didn't they just reduce it the whole way down? Why did they leave a very little amount of money on the table?
I can't answer that. I don't know. I have not quite figured that out, unless it has something to do with the whole 17-week thing or the 17-game thing. Right. I have not been able to track down exactly why they would not have taken them all the way down to 1.075 versus the 1.120. I'll have to put that on my list of things to ask Joe Corey about there, but I have not. 1.120 versus 1.075 was the difference of what they decided to do with that.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange one, but good to have that confirmed. I'm sure that was bugging you of why that number was off.
Yeah. You wake up to $36,000 difference there, and you can't figure it out. Finally tracked it down thanks to the update.
If I had a nickel for every $36,000 difference on the NFLPA salary cap, I'd be a rich man.
I know. Absolutely you would. Long story short, in real time here, and this counts for the 792,000 NFLPA placeholder for the workout bonuses and all like that. I have the Steelers in real time right now as being 10.461.59 under the salary cap.
And your terrible take yesterday outlined more about the salary cap and what a lot of that money is earmarked for, and why this team has a lot less salary cap space than what people may think.
Right. It looks good on paper that almost $10.5 million under, but when you consider there's $13 million at least $13 million that you still have to account for throughout the rest of the season. Essentially, I think you're looking at about this team having effectively, and this assumes that they do the restructures on Tuitt and Boswell later in the offseason, which I will be shocked if they don't. This team really effectively has about $2.5 million in cap space to work with, and that might be a little bit generous on my part.
Right, because you were being conservative with your estimates of some of those numbers. Yeah.
Right.
So not as much as people think. All right, Dave, final thing here I think we have to talk about is just a brief comment from team president Art Rooney II, talking about the official 17-game season, the reduction of the preseason from 4 to 3 games. And Rooney said that fourth preseason week will now basically just become a bye week and an off week as teams get ready for the start of the season.
And props to Matthew Marksey for writing about that this morning, kind of picking out that little bit of a nugget there. It makes sense.
Gonna miss the Steelers-Panthers game. Gonna miss that finale.
is that one ruled out though? In other words, will that be the final game? Look, here's the thing: the Steelers will play 4 games this year because they're in the Hall of Fame game.
Mm-hmm. Right, against Dallas.
Other teams will play 3 preseason games. Now the question is, do they schedule the Panthers to be their last preseason game?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I have no idea how it's going to look. But
I would think they probably would at some point at least schedule the Panthers there. And this all kind of makes sense. And Matthew did a good job outlining this because, whatever your tune-up game is, whatever you decide that to be, you would think it would be the final one, right? Or would you?
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Is your tune-up now going to be the second game in the middle, or is it going to be the third game, the final game? Because it always had been the third game, and so now what do you do?
I would think you would want it later in. I would think that the whole minutia related to this is to give the bye week and give the players a week off after the final preseason game, because that final preseason game being a tune-up game. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I would think so, because if you make it the second, you got the third game plus the bye plus the start of week 1. That's like 3 weeks you're off. Your starters haven't really played, so right. I think it would make more sense for the third game. I guess the only concern would be, just risking injury. Somebody gets a week-to-week thing. Maybe they won't be ready for week 1, but I would imagine the third game would be still a tune-up game.
And then that way you could use in a normal situation, use your first 2 games to take a long look at the bottom end of the roster, guys.
All right, but that was the magic of the 4th preseason game.
I know.
You get to look at these guys. My terrible take today is on that, and I'm mad about all these young guys, all these undrafted players, rookie guys getting just absolutely screwed over here.
Yeah, look, I mean, you're not going to get an argument out of me on that. I love the more preseason games, the better for me. I mean, we love nothing more than charting those games and getting a long look at those guys. And yeah, it's going to end up, continuing to hurt. I mean, it definitely hurt the last season not having a preseason, and having one less game is to some degree is going to hurt. These guys really got to make a lot of puts more emphasis on camp performance and those kind of things as well too. So a lot of these guys, if they don't make an impact in those first 2 preseason games, I mean a huge impact, it's kind of hard to get noticed.
Yeah, I think these guys just get screwed every which way, and the league owners don't fight for them, and the union doesn't even fight for them because they want the offseason virtual. They're okay with fewer preseason games. I think it all just kind of sucks if you're a young guy just trying to overcome long odds. I
mean, just look in the past when it comes to the Steelers. Does Roosevelt Nix make the roster if there wasn't a 4th preseason game? Go back several years, Terrence Garvin, I think, was. I mean, you could probably go Stephon Logan, right? I mean, right. You go back through the years, you kind of wonder if there wasn't that last kind of meaningless, so to speak, preseason game. How many of those guys would make the roster?
Right, that's the thing. It's meaningless to the fans and to Big Ben, for example, but it's not meaningless to half that roster. Right. That's their chance to either catch that roster spot or land on the practice squad or at least send out tape to scouts whenever they do get cut. And now they won't have that. So I just feel for those guys, and I doubt there's going to be will there be rookie mini camps this year, and will there be tryout guys and all that? That didn't happen last year, so just a tough situation to be one of those guys right now.
Exactly.
All right, Dave, anything else we should talk about? Any other news that I missed here before we start wrapping up today's show?
No, I think we got the most of it there.
All right, Dave, we have a new sponsor of the show. We are very proud to have a sponsor on the show. It is Manscaped. They sent both you and I, Dave, a care package, which looked very nice so far. I haven't gotten to try all the products yet, but the T-shirt is very soft, and I'm a big baby about T-shirts, Dave. I need them to be soft and tagless, and this shirt is, and the boxes are really nice as well. So our new friends over at Manscaped.com.
Boy, they did a good job. The intricacies of just the packaging alone of how they put that together was absolutely fantastic. Look, everybody's probably seen the Manscaped commercials and all, and what a great trimmer it is. And the thing, I trim the top half, okay? I stay above the neck there, but obviously you can use this on all areas of your body, but we don't recommend going from one to the other when it comes to this. But I have used it. Look, I'll go 2 weeks without shaving, and my wife would get on me, and I'll have to knock it down. And this certainly does do it, and it's got a nice charge feature. It's a wet dry type of razor as well too. I've used it. I love it. It's going to go in. I'm going to use it until I can't use it anymore when it comes to kind of pre-shaving, if you will. Obviously, if you're into manscaping and all those kind of things, it's perfect for that as well. Go to their website, manscaped.com. Most of you, I think, listen to this, have seen the commercials by now. And look, they've got a special deal for listeners of the Terrible Podcast right now. So if you go to manscaped.com, if you use the promo code TERRIBLE, that's terrible, you get 20% off your order and free shipping. So, if you're doing a little bit of spring cleaning right now, if you will, perfect time to go over there and get the product from there. Once again, 20% off, free shipping at manscaped.com if you use promo code TERRIBLE. And we'll be talking about them, I think, a couple more episodes here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, our thanks to Manscaped for reaching out and partnering with the Terrible Podcast, I should say.
Absolutely.
All right, Dave. Let's wrap up today's show with some reader emails.
All right, let's get after it here. We'll talk first about, let's see what Chris Lookhart has. Good morning, fellas. I just had a couple thoughts to share with you. My first thought is it seems that any chance of getting Trey Lance is dissipating with every second that passes. He seems to be climbing up the draft boards and is possibly top 10, 15 pick now. My second thought is Trey Sermon. I watched some tape on the kid, and I do not like him. He's slow and has no real traits that would make him worth drafting, considering we already have this type of back on the roster. And Benny Snell seems faster by a little bit and is just as violent of a runner, if not more than Sermon. I think we get a running back. It needs to be Travis Etienne or Harris. Other than those two, it wouldn't be worth drafting a running back. If we pick Sermon, I won't be mad, but I'll be disappointed. Thanks for listening to my complaint. I don't think Sermon is as bad as maybe what Chris is kind of framing him here. But I mean, I think without a doubt, Trey Sermon is not one of the top 3 running backs in this draft, probably not top 4. And you start stacking them up with Chuba Hubbard and all like that. I mean, he's down the list a little ways.
Yeah, he's not going to be the Steelers' first option. It's very clear they want to get guys at the top, and the 2 leaders in the clubhouse at the top right now probably are Najee Harris and Travis Etienne. But if they don't get those guys for whatever reason, because you can't assume that's going to happen, because what if somebody falls to you, another position, or there's a trade, or those guys for whatever reason go earlier and they're on the board. If they're not there, if you don't get them, then you could look at maybe Trey Sermon as a fallback option in round 3. I mean, I know he's a bigger back, and people say you have Benny Snell on the roster, but I think Sermon's more athletic than Benny Snell. He tested really well, Sermon did, and so I think some of the athletic scores he put up have been really impressive. So I wouldn't necessarily say that he's another Benny Snell or that they are 1-to-1 in their comparison.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you look at his measurables and all, like from a spark standpoint, I mean, he is a sparky dude. Probably one of the sparkiest ones in this draft, right? Especially for his size.
Right. Yeah. Relative to his size, I think the relative athletic score put him at like 118 out of the top 1,000 running backs over the last 30 years or so. So I mean it's a good number he tested in the RAS score.
And I think another thing that the Ohio State the head coach had to say is, look, you getting a kid here that really doesn't have a lot of overall mileage on him right now too. And I think if you look at his total attempts, is something like around 450 for his entire college career, and he's played 4 seasons. He was at Oklahoma for 3 seasons before going to to Ohio State there. Now, did they probably use him properly? As far as, I haven't looked deep into his receiving skills, and I've just looked mainly at him as a runner. Good in short yardage from what I've seen, and I think he's got a better explosive play rate than say a guy like Najee Harris does.
Yeah, well, you pulled the numbers on that, right? I mean, you have the data.
I'll have to pull them up again, but let me see here.
I think he did okay. I don't know exactly. I mean, he averaged, I think, 6.5 yards per carry. So I'm sure he had a lot of explosive plays last year for Ohio State. So again, I kind of put them in that James Conner boat. 3rd round guy, pick 88. If they don't take a running back in the 1st or 2nd round, then I think Sermon's a strong possibility. In that 3rd round,
he has the same 20 plus run percent explosive play rate that Javonte Williams did, 6.8%, and Javonte only had 366 career rushes at North Carolina. Trey Sermon looks like 455. They both had equally a 20-plus run rate of 6.8. Now, Javonte has got him in the 10-plus category there. They're fairly close, though. I think over 19.3 for Trey Sermon versus 23. But when you look at that Trey Sermon 19.3, it matches up with guys like Michael Carter at 19.8 and Travis Etienne at 19.5. You look at a guy, Najee. Najee did not have the 20-plus run rate, kind of a lowly 4.1%, but he did have a much higher 10-plus percentage run rate of 21.2% there. So just from a statistical explosive play standpoint, Trey Sermon definitely matches up. And once again, when you look at some of these guys on this list and their overall total amount of carries, 455, shows that he indeed does not have a lot of mileage on him.
Yeah,
I'm not pushing him, mind you. Oh boy, they got to get this guy in the 2nd or 3rd round. I think he's more of another one of those 4th round, late 3rd or 4th round running backs there. And I get where maybe Chris is coming from. I don't think the Steelers are going into this draft personally saying, oh boy, if we could only get Trey Sermon in the 3rd or 4th. I really do still think that they're looking at in either or with Travis Etienne or obviously Najee Harris. But if they can't get one of those guys, that Sermon could be a guy that they potentially would like later on.
Right. Is this a fair way to kind of frame the tiers of the Steelers draft plans? Tier 1, 1st round, Najee Harris, Alabama, Travis Etienne, Clemson. Tier 2, 2nd round, Javonte Williams, North Carolina, and then Tier 3, 3rd round, Trey Sermon out of Ohio State. Is that kind of a good way to break this thing up?
Yeah, I the thing about what kind of real interest do they have in Javonte though?
I think they have interest in him. I mean,
right.
I just because Tomlin and Colbert weren't there, that you can put him aside from 24, but at 55, I think it's still a possibility.
Right, it's possible. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I put him in Tier 2, 2nd round, and then Sermon in the 3rd round.
That makes sense.
Okay, so yeah, we'll see. But again, I think their goal and their hope is to get a running back in the top 2 rounds.
Yeah, I would look. Right now, I think it's Etienne or Harris, and if you don't get one of those guys, I'm not so sure Javonte falls to 55. So then, as much as Chris might not like it, if they don't get Travis Etienne or Harris, the probability of them landing a guy like Sermon goes way up, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right.
All right, next question.
Next question. Gary writes in, just released the CBS, I guess one of the mocks there. Tevin Jenkins first, Trey Sermon, Jabril Cox, Kendrick Green, Cameron anyway, I guess he's just forwarding along. Didn't we write about that? Didn't you write about the CBS mock that had Tevin Jenkins going first?
God, there's so many mocks at this point. I'm not even sure. I think so. I think I did one of the CBS mocks.
And then he's got this one particular one that has Trey Sermon in the 2nd. I think that's a little bit early it feels a little early for Sermon in the second, though, right?
A little bit, but I mean, if he's a number 4 running back, number 5 running back in this class, I mean, late second round, I guess it's not impossible, but I think third round's more likely for it.
Jelani writes in, love the show as always with the Steelers likely to address the running back position in the early rounds, blah, blah, blah. Guys like Najee Harris, Travis Etienne being mocked on Steelers, although everyone is talking about Ben throwing the ball 50 times a game. I don't know. Are people really talking about Ben potentially throwing the ball 50 times a game? I felt like he didn't have a running back he could trust to hand the ball off to. Do you think those attempts could come down to maybe 25 to 30 attempts a game if one of those backs are drafted, since would immediately become the best back on the team? Jelani, I think, long story short, this kind of goes back to the mandate that Art Rooney II gave earlier in the offseason. Got to run the ball better. I think the byproduct of what happened last season with Ben throwing as much as he did was the team not having a running game, and then thus trying to use that throw short, run long, run game alternative, if you will, to help in that aspect of it. I think if you got a running back, say a Travis Etienne or Najee Harris, and was able to get a push on, configure your offensive lineup where you're able to run a little bit ball, not only a little bit more, but more successful, then the thing you don't want to have happen on a regular basis, and we've said this several times, right, Alex, is you don't want on a game-by-game basis Ben Roethlisberger having to drop back and throw 40 times a game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not that Ben's attempts would drop from where he's been at to 25. I mean, it'll still be a healthy number. Ben's still going to be the driver of this offense, but can you just get more balance? And, can you get an offense that isn't required to have Ben throw it 50 times a game? Because that's basically what happened last season. But essentially, the last 2 seasons, Ben has played fully. He's led the league in attempts, and that's not sustainable. You have to have a more balance to that, and you have to have a little bit more of an effective run game for obvious reasons. So I think the mentality is, we'll bring Ben back, but we have to surround him with a much better run game overall than putting it all on his shoulders. And so I think that's the approach the team's taking.
I think there's still going to be games where he's going to have 30 to 38 pass attempts, because maybe you're late in the game, or you never know how the 2 minute cycle is going to work out, and whether or not you're behind 4 minutes left in the game, those kind of type things, game situations. But I think the overall goal obviously is to, you just don't want to see game in, game out him out drop back 40 times to pass. And look, the run game really for the last couple of seasons now has not been great at all. And I'm less concerned about number of runs as I am run success rates. And boy, it sure would be nice too if you could sneak in 10 or 12 explosive runs throughout a season as well too, if not more. I think just the threshold, the line in the sand should, we got to have at least 15 running back runs of 20 yards or more in a season. Anything more than that is absolutely gravy, but it's absolutely stealing when you get a running back that goes for 20 yards or more in a game.
It is. I want to look at just Ben's numbers in 2020. What was some of the fewest pass attempts he had in a game? His fewest was 22 in the blowout win against Cleveland. His next fewest was 32, 32, 34. In over basically half the games he's throwing 40-plus times. So, there will still be games where, even to get a good running back, a better run game, where Ben will throw it 45-plus times, but you just don't want to feel like you have to do that every single game, and that's your only way that you can win. And so again, I think that's the intent and goal of the Steelers right now.
Right. How many games did he have over 35 attempps last year?
12.
That's too many.
12 of the 15 that he played, and then of course in the playoff game he threw 68 times. So that was that.
Right. I think we answered that pretty good, right?
I hope so. Gold star for us.
All right. Let's see, what else do we have? Here's a little something from Mike Garofalo. Antonio Antonio Brown, Buccaneers have talked return, but are not close on money right now. So it looks like Antonio Brown's still looking for a home. Right? The Buccaneers got almost everybody else back, it looks like. Pretty damn close.
Yeah, it's crazy how they retained, Sue and Barrett and Fournette. I mean, they brought the whole band back, but winning the Super Bowl, I think, helps doing that.
Let's see if we can get one. Bob Francis wants to know, let's see. Can you update on where the Steelers stand, projected comp picks, and future salary cap space? I'm thinking of Alex's terrible take. I think we already hit on that. Bob, I just gave a pretty good full salary cap update, so hopefully you caught that. As far as compensatory picks go, they're still on the board technically for like 2, right?
Yeah, a third for Dupree, and what was the other?
Like a 5th or a 6th, I think.
Was it for Filer, though?
I don't remember.
I think it was for Filer. Because I think Hilton is getting canceled out by Joe Haig, which I don't totally understand, but I guess. But I think right now 3rd for Dupree, and I think a 5th for Filer.
All right, let's see. John from writes in, Mark in Vancouver sucks. John was pretty upset. John lives in southern Utah, by the way. I'd like to go visit southern Utah at some point. Evidently, we had a Mark in Vancouver write in, get on me a couple times about my stuttering, I think, a couple times. And John wrote a lengthy email. You guys compliment each other perfectly, and your knowledge is second to none. John, we appreciate that. Let's see. He also likes the longer shows on top of it. Thinks we shouldn't pay too much attention to what the time says. He says, anyway, point of my email is Mac in Vancouver sucks. Keep up the great work and ramble as much as you want to. All right, so there you go.
No, we've accomplished that in today's show. At least.
Yeah, and I think I've managed to stutter some more today too. So we have accomplished that aspect of it as well too. Outside of that, I don't think we have anything else, Alex, pertinent to talk about here. How about that? So why don't we wrap it up on this Friday? Tell people probably, are we going to be back on Monday or no? We'll have to play it by ear, aren't we?
Yeah, it just depends. If there's any, as of right now, I'm going to assume no. We'll be back Tuesday. But if any news breaks, of course, then we can come back for Monday's show. Yeah, we're looking forward to maybe slow down a little bit here after these pro days kind of come to an end this weekend. I think there are a pro day or two next week, but I think they're the smaller schools. But barring really anything significant happening at this point, we're probably going to shoot to go back to Tuesday and Friday next week with the podcast. Right, Alex? I think that's the plan, at least right now. All right, that's the plan. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button, upper right navigational bar. And also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button for $25 for 1 calendar year. You can have an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com, and that's been very, 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 very popular. We appreciate all the subscribers to that. No live stream on Monday either. I think that's scheduled for the week after on that as well too. So tentatively until Tuesday. That's, but you don't remember the band Till Tuesday, do you, Alex? Voices Nope.
Carry.
No idea.
Hush, keep it down now. Voices carry. Oh, that's a horrible way to end the show. But anyway, until Tuesday, maybe. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.